going on, guys? It's another edition of Timeout. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with my co-host, Mr. Chris Cuff. Chris, how was your Thanksgiving?
My Thanksgiving was great, man. How was your Thanksgiving?
The turkey was a little bit dry, my
Oh
friend.
no,
Somebody should have told me that I shouldn't have gotten a green wise turkey.
not
What
the
about you?
green wise. Not the green one. Never the green wise.
Terrible, terrible. All right. Well, with that being said, we're definitely going to be talking about the National Football League tonight, going into the local teams, your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Miami Dolphins, and of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars. We'll also talk about the college football playoff, a big game last Saturday where the Michigan Wolverines beat the Ohio State Buckeyes. And we'll also talk about some breaking news in the college football world locally here, and then also talk about some United States World Cup. We're going to start out the show with Orlando Magic beat writer for the Orlando Sentinel, Mr. Kobe Price. Welcome to Timeout.
Mr. Kobe Price, how are you, sir? How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How y'all doing?
Good, man. How's everything going in Magic Land?
It's a great day today, right? You know, we get
Right.
Markel and Cole Anthony looking like they're going to come back tomorrow. So it's been a 5-16 start. Usually doesn't have great vibes around it, but
Right.
when you get, two main guys back, there's a good feeling around the team. It's just a good energy after news like that.
So what has been happening with the Magic? It looks like the walking wounded over there, which is something that's seems to have happened year after year, with just a rotating door of players just coming in and going out with injuries. I mean, what's going on up there?
Yeah, I mean, it's the injury bug. They've been hit by the injury bug, over and over again. And it's gotten, there was an expectation of, there were certain guys who were out to start the season, Markel, he fractured the toe late in the offseason. Gary had the meniscus surgery. Mo Wagner, he got hurt he got hurt in the preseason right before the regular season started. So there were guys that were known going to be out, but then, Cole Anthony gets hurt early in the season. Wendell's been dealing with this plantar fascia issue for a couple weeks now. And then, Jalen Suggs, right ankle soreness, Chuma, the knee soreness. Now you got Mo Bamba back spasm. Just guys have been struggling from that sense. But you're starting to see, like I said, you're seeing Markel about to come back. You're seeing Cole about to come back. You're starting to get some bodies back, even though, some bodies are still out. Some guys are still out. You're starting to see Gary Harris just got back. That was 11, 12 days ago. So you're starting to see guys come back, despite it really being the skeleton crew, especially last night against the Brooklyn Nets when they were missing half their roster.
Yeah, and I think the big-time story is, of course, the first-round pick in Paolo Baccaro. I mean, how surprised were you that the Magic took him? And then on top of it, how surprised are you of how great he's been for the Magic early on, even though he's had some games where he missed? He's definitely been the story of this team this year.
Yeah, no, Paolo Banchero, he's been great. It was surprising for a lot of us when he was the number one pick, when the Magic made him the number one pick, but he's lived up to the expectations that come with that label, right? Like the scoring has been there. The passing has been there, which I think some people said during college was underrated about him, but that's been pretty consistent for him too as a rookie. And he's just playing with the poise and a confidence that you don't see from most at 19 when he was drafted, now 20-year-olds. And it's an amazing feat to watch, honestly. Like even in that game against Brooklyn last night, I'm not going to say he was going shot for shot with KD, because it was like a combination of him, Franz, and Bol, and even Gary to extent, trying to go keep up with KD's scoring prowess. But you can definitely tell like he belongs at this level. Not just belongs, but he's going to be a guy who's going to excel at this level for years to come, as long as he keeps working on his game.
Another bright spot for this year, is Bol has really stood up and been a surprise and a very solid player for the Magic on both ends of the court.
Yeah, no, but the thing with Bol is that the talent has been there, right? Like he was a top prospect in his high school recruiting class in 2018. He had very, very spectacular games at Oregon when he was healthy and available. The problem was that, he wasn't healthy and available a lot during his lone season at Oregon in college. And that led to him falling in the second round. And then he goes to Denver and in the, I believe it's the 2019 draft. And Denver goes from a team where, they were developing guys. They had developed Jokic, they had developed Murray, they were developing Michael Porter Jr. They go from developing to all of a sudden they're trying to contend, and that kind of leaves Bull, if not showing it immediately, it's just hard for a young player to be on a contending roster and get those kind of consistent minutes, especially when he isn't healthy or when he wasn't healthy. So for him, just being healthy and having opportunity, for young players, that it can be that simple. Being healthy and having opportunity to grow. And to me, he's showing growth within the season. It's only been a month and a half, 6 weeks of the season, but even within those 6 weeks, like every 2 to 3 weeks, he continues to show a different layer to his game, a different evolution to him, and that speaks to his the talent, like I spoken about earlier, but also the work he's putting in behind the scenes that we may not see day in and day out.
And we're on with Kobe Price here from the Orlando Sentinel. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with my co-host, Mr. Chris Cup. Yes. Do you feel like he's a building block for the Magic to build on here for this future? Because everybody keeps on talking about the future, but Kobe, when is the time to turn the page here? When does this team finally realize all this potential? Is Bull a part of that?
Yeah, I think he certainly can be a building block. I think he can be a key fixture of this team for years to come. Obviously, there's the contractual side of it. He's on a 2-year deal. I think next season is non-guaranteed. So obviously that has to get worked out. But, he's shown the talent and the production to be a guy who can be a part of this core. He fits alongside the best players. We've seen him fit alongside Paulo. We've seen him fit alongside Franz, Wendell, a couple of the guards when they've been available and played. So he's shown that ability to not just produce and excel individually, but also fit alongside the other players. So there's no reason, to me at least, that he can't be, a player who stays in Orlando, continues to develop in Orlando alongside the guys they already have.
Kobe, question, it's been asked, and we asked for years and years, seems like. Jonathan Isaac, where is he on his recovery, on his getting back his lungs and his stamina? I mean, where is he as far as getting back on the floor? It seemed like forever.
Yeah, it has been. It has been a while. With J.I., he's getting there. Talking with him or just talking with others, he's getting there. I think the last thing, I guess the last update I had was he's been playing 5-on-5 with coaches for the past for a little while now. Just getting in that running because it had been so long since he had been playing against playing NBA basketball. There's a lot of individual work, a lot of rehab, which is good, which is helpful. But when you're not playing, when you go so long without actually being on the floor playing 5-on-5 live scrimmages, that can take your wind out of you. So he's progressing from that standpoint. He's going to take a couple, I think, some good progressions within the next couple of weeks or next few weeks in terms of his return to play process. And I think there will be some, I guess, encouraging developments probably within the next, like I said, couple of few weeks with him.
Okay. So, Kobe, what do you think things are looking like for the Magic towards the end of the season? Any predictions?
Predictions. I mean, the one thing is just get healthy. Like I said, we're gonna have Markel and Gary. They're gonna get back tomorrow. Then you obviously have to see what goes on with Jalen, Chuma, Wendell. Like with Chuma and Jalen, it seems like it's more so soreness. So you assume that's more so maybe day to day or maybe like a week thing. With Wendell, it's kind of tough because he has missed, I believe, at this point 5 or 6 games because of the plantar fascia issue. So and that's just one of those injuries where at least how I'm understanding it, just a lot of it, you just don't put pressure on it, don't bother it, and you just gotta let it rest. Now, how much rest it'll need, that hasn't been determined yet. So I think the main thing for them is just health. And we talked about J.I. and just getting some of these guys back on the floor, because more than anything else, what this season needs to be about is understanding your team, understanding not just what the individuals can bring, but how they mesh together. We've seen Paulo excel. We've seen Franz Wagner excel. We've seen Jalen Suggs take a step. We've seen Wendell take another step in his development. We've seen Bol be this revelation. Now, how does that all look within a team context? That is the most important thing for the Magic to leave this 2022 2023 season understanding. What do all these players individually, what can they bring to a team context, and how do they fit and mesh together?
With this team going forward this year, if they continue down this track where they're not winning a lot of games, could you see them tanking to try to get the number 1 overall pick once again? Or do you think this team is going to play for their coach?
I think they're going to play not just for the coach, but play for themselves too. Sometimes we forget the individuals have the players have stakes in this process, right? Like, we just saw options get picked up, team options get picked up, and some not, and one not picked up recently. With Jalen Suggs, with who was it? It was Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, Chuma, and Cole getting their options picked up, and RJ not getting his picked up. As these guys are young and talented, but there is also the contractual part of it where Cole, Chuma are going to be entering the last year of their rookie scale contracts. RJ is going to be a free agent. RJ Hampton, that is. Bol, like I said, non-guaranteed deal for next season. Gary Harris, non-guaranteed. Mo Bamba, non-guaranteed. So all of these guys individually have something, even like individually, to play for next season, both within the team context, but like I said, also individually. So I think with that understanding that there's probably going to be a little bit, maybe not like an I or them focus in terms of individually, but there's going to be more for them to play for in that sense. And that's just the individual context. That's ignoring this team needs to understand what it has with who it has before they can start looking externally for any solutions to start to get to the next level in their development.
It's phenomenal after the season they had last year. A lot of learning and building and COVID and all these things that they've had to deal with, that they're still learning what they have after adding just a few pieces over the off season. Kobe, thank you so much for joining us, man. I really appreciate your time. I know you're very busy. We look forward to talking to you maybe later on in the season to see what things look like. How about it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would love to be back, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate you, buddy. All right, there you go. That's Kobe Price from the Orlando Sentinel. Of course, not Kobe White, as I said. That's, I think it's the turkey hangover, if you will, on Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Mr. Blake, along with co-host here, Chris Cuff, on time out. I'm going to time myself out. Let's talk about it. The Magic, Bol, he's been a sensation at this point. 7-2, started out with Denver. It looks like a true unicorn at this point because he's able to score, shoot threes, block shots. We know that his old man, Manute Bol, that's how old I am. I remember him.
Yes.
Didn't necessarily have the offensive prowess. This kid's got it, and he may be a part of their future. It certainly seems like.
It's amazing. Bol he's got the handle of a point guard.
Right.
He can bring the ball up, no problem. He shoots threes. I mean, he's phenomenal when you see him with his size, just bringing the ball up and just going straight to the hoop. Right. Weaving through traffic and laying it right up like it's no problem. No one expects it. That's going to end. You know that. They're going to be ready for it. And blocking shots. So he's still got more stuff to develop, but he's got a lot of skills, definitely. Only thing is that the Magic have had in the last few games, they're missing Wendell Carter Jr. And Wendell Carter Jr. was the beef in the paint for the Orlando Magic. Because you have Wendell Carter Jr., you have Mo Bamba, and you have Bol, which are your three top-tier players.
Lots of size there. I mean, that's the key. At the end
lots of size, but no beef.
No, right. No beef, but
yeah.
Lots of skill there. And the NBA is different. Maybe, 20 years ago, you're looking at Shaq, how he's a presence. The game has changed. You don't necessarily have to be a big man and have that physical presence. What you have to do is shots and, of course, protect the rim. And I think the most encouraging thing is that this Magic team can get healthy with all the potential. Who knows? Maybe they can start putting some wins together. Markelle Fultz, of course, a big part of that. Cole Anthony, son of Greg Anthony, big parts of it at the end of the day. So I tell you what, let's go ahead and move on to the National Football League locally here. Disappointing, to say the least, as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers fall to the Cleveland Browns coming into the game, you would circle it and say, this is the time for this team to gain momentum. Now they fall to 5-6. And I thought the person that definitely deserves a timeout has to be Todd Bowles. 9 3-and-outs. You get the ball back. You have 3 timeouts to use right before overtime, and you basically only use 1. You let all this time go off the clock, and your explanation is the reason why you didn't call a timeout is because, in so many words, you thought Tom Brady was going to throw an interception. Am I correct about this? Does Todd Bowles deserve a timeout?
Todd Bowles deserves a timeout. I'm sorry. This is Tom Brady you're talking about. He won the game a couple weeks ago with 44 seconds left. You had 2 timeouts left. It was ridiculous, man. And I looked at Twitter right after the game, and the Buccaneers posted, "Just breathe."
Right, just breathe. Because they're 5-6, and they're in the god-awful division known as the NFC South, as the Falcons.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, right. Carolina won this week. The Saints lost. They're having quarterback troubles. And, oh, by the way, the next game the Buccaneers will face will be the New Orleans Saints on Monday Night Football. So,
yes,
taking a look. And then the other top story was losing their all-pro right tackle and Tristan Wirfs. I mean, how much
that hurts.
Do you think that is going to be to this team?
That really, really hurts the Bucs, man. He is a solid piece for them. That's really, really going to just make them weaker up front. Wirtz is definitely a key for the Bucs on that side, but they have to work through it, man. There's nothing else they can do. Is just try and work through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Try to work through it. So once again, must-win situation, but who knows? The way this team is playing is inconsistent, and now losing your best offensive lineman, you kind of doubt this team can even have 10 wins, or I don't even know if they were going to need 10 wins at this juncture. They could probably win this division with 8 or 9 wins. That's how bad the NFC South is this year. So once again, they play the Saints on Monday night. We'll see how that works out. Other local news here. The Miami Dolphins, 30-15 over the Houston Texans. Tua, 22 for 36, 299, 1 touchdown. They were led by that questionable defense. I'm not jumping up and down, but at the end of the day, they had 5 sacks versus the Houston Texans. What do you make of this Miami Dolphin team? 8-3 now. Pretty impressive, right?
Pretty impressive, man. A win is a win. Tua still 22 for 36, 299 yards and a touchdown. So he handled his business and held it down. They're still doing it. Tyreek Hill, six catches for 85 yards. So the machine is still working no matter what. It seems like they're just outscoring the other teams to fight their flaws. So that's pretty good.
And they have to keep on winning in that division because you have the Buffalo Bills. They get a big win, of course, on Thanksgiving, 28-25. They just survived the Lions there. And then the Jets with a new starting quarterback. I'll tell you what, we'll get back to that in a moment, but let's talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Who would have thought Tom Brady and the Bucs would lose? You got Jacksonville and Miami doing better right now, and Jacksonville 28-27 over the Baltimore Ravens. The big story in that game, Trevor Lawrence, 29 for 37, 321, 3 touchdowns. Have we finally seen the progression that the Jaguars envisioned when they drafted him number 1 overall?
Like they say, but wait, there's more. He's still developing. We're just starting to see more and more flashes of his skills. He's got it. I mean, he did it at Clemson. They said he did it in high school, and he's going to do it in the NFL as well. He has the skills. Some of those passes he made were pinpoint, thread the needle, incredible. He's got it. He's getting more and more confident. So I'm really having a lot more faith in the Jags, especially Trevor Lawrence. He's doing it.
Yeah, he's definitely doing it. The Jags go to 4-7 now, a lot better shape than they were last year with the greatness or not their lack thereof greatness in Urban Meyer. Let's go around the NFL a little bit. What was your biggest surprise? I mean, the Eagles continue to roll on here. Only 1 loss for the season. They beat the Green Bay Packers 40-33. What were some of the other things that you saw this week in Week 12?
The Raiders taking out the Seahawks. Remember, I mentioned the Raiders last week, and you timed out me about the Raiders. Said they were hot garbage. Hey, they beat the Hawks.
They
Their
did.
record isn't great, 4-7, but still, they came through and won the game. So go to the Raiders. They
Well,
did it.
two in a row now. They beat the Denver Broncos. And of course, you talk about beating the Seahawks, and the catalyst for that, not only Derek Carr and Devontae Adams, but of course, Josh Jacobs running wild on them, over 150 rushing yards versus Seattle. And Seattle has really fallen by the wayside the last couple of games, getting outrushed by the Bucs, of course, and then also losing to the Raiders. I'm still going to time you out because they have Josh McDaniels, and in my opinion, no business being a coach in the National Football League with all that talent, with Derek Carr and Devontae Adams not able to get Adams consistently the ball in the second half. But they figured out. We'll see if the Raiders can go on a little bit of a run. What else did you see this week, Chris?
Well, I'm going to give a timeout to Russell Williams because he's at the point where he's messing up so much. He's getting cussed out by his defensive linemen. So timeout to Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson has absolutely been one of the biggest disappointments along with the Denver Broncos. And the thing is, the NFL continue to put them on prime time all year long, and they've been one of the most. You lose to the Carolina Panthers. Make some sense of that. Going back to Thanksgiving, Dallas, are you buying them? They dispose of the New York Giants 28-20. Dak, you run the ball. CD Lamb has a pretty big game. I mean, are you buying the Dallas Cowboys and that defense?
If you folks have listened to our episode last week, I'm a diehard 100% Dallas Cowboys fan. And I do want to talk about that picture with Jerry Jones a little later. But their talent is finally coming together, and they are working. And the more they work, the better they're getting. They're getting solid. Dak is just knocking things out. 21 for 30, 260 yards, and 2 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb also doing it, 6 receptions for 106 yards. Dallas is on fire, kind of looking like the Miami of the NFC, being one of the best teams in the NFC.
Yeah, and I mean, the Chiefs continue to roll on. They had an ugly win versus the Rams. The Rams have their all kinds of problems. The Vikings win in a shootout versus the New England Patriots. You watch that. I mean, I bet a lot on these games.
Did you?
I did. Cincinnati beats Tennessee 20-16.
Oh, yes.
And going back to it, because we talked about this last week on Timeout, Zach Wilson was benched after his comments. Mike White comes in, throws for 3 touchdowns, over 300 yards. And for me, the only way this Jets team makes the playoffs is without a Zach Wilson. In fact, reports are that not only he has lost confidence, but the Jets have lost confidence in him. So what do you think about the Jets going forward here? Legitimate playoff contender with Mike White?
I have to see more of Mike White. He knocked him out of the park this week. I'll give it to him, man. He did the job for sure. Yes. And he said he gladly thanked his defense after the game, which I think he's playing it correctly with a little wink and a smile. So I'm loving Mike White, as they are, and all the overreactions that I'm hearing out of New York radio. They are loving Mike White as well. So we'll see. It's one game. It's overreaction, I guess, Tuesday. So we'll see how it goes next week. It's still too soon.
Speaking of quarterbacks, is it too soon to bench Aaron Rodgers? He went out, it looks like, with a rib injury. Jordan Love came in, went 6 for 9, 113 yards, including a 63-yard catch and run by Christian Watson, who, by the way, has 6 touchdowns now, the young wide receiver, who, of course, if you remember the first game versus Minnesota, he drops an easy touchdown. After that, he's definitely rebounded. So my question for you is it time to bench Aaron Rodgers and for the Packers to take a look at Jordan Love?
I think they should take a look at Jordan Love. It's hard to bench Aaron. I think only if his injuries are starting to affect him, because now it's the ribs. He also had like thumb ligaments, right, on his throwing hand. Right. So that's 2 things he's fighting against. I don't know. It's probably his last year. That's a really, really tough call. Of course, I'd love to see him benched, but that's just me.
That's just you?
That's just me.
There's a lot of people out there, a lot of Packer fans that are ready to move on, and who knows, you may want to move with the Jordan Love next year, but the problem is you have that albatross of a contract and $50 million. Who's going to pay that? it's going to be the Packers. So either he gets traded to somebody and you pay the majority of that contract, or you're stuck with a quarterback that clearly is on the decline.
That is true.
Did you by chance catch Lamar Jackson's comments?
I caught up. I saw your note and I checked it out. It just sounded like someone complaining to his homies and snapping like someone that's out on the street with him. I was very surprised that got out in the press. He deleted it right away, from what I understand.
Yes.
And I am not surprised that he used that language. Basically, he, I'm sure, uses that language every day, although his coaches and the people around the team say, I'm shocked that he would speak that way. I am not shocked 1% at all. I mean, that's definitely language you would hear in the locker room, as far as I'm concerned.
There was definitely some frustration because, once again, the Ravens blew a big lead here against the Jaguars. It wasn't the fault of Jackson. He went 16 for 32, 254, and 1 touchdown. But, of course, the fan called him out, said when someone is asking for over $250 guaranteed money, games like that should not come down to kicker Justin Tucker. Let Lamar walk, spend that money on a well-rounded team, and, of course, tagging the Baltimore quarterback. Now, Jackson saw that and said, boy, STFU, y'all be capping too much on this app. MF never smelled a football field, never did. and eat okay, and then responded to the fan.
Now, okay, let's talk about the comment.
Yes.
Let's talk about the comment. First of all, I love the comment.
Right.
That is definitely a comment that someone would make. 250, right? That's what he wants.
$250 million, yes.
Yeah, you could get some nice players with $250 million.
Well, but doesn't Lamar Jackson deserve that type of money? I mean, if you're going to pay Deshaun Watson, who's basically not done as much as Jackson, aren't you in the same ballpark at the end of the day? And see, for me, I don't believe in paying a quarterback that much money, even though it's the market value. I believe in the Brady blueprint. Take less money to help your team out. And I understand where this fan is coming from, but more than likely he's trolling. And Lamar Jackson basically has to avoid it. Now, Jim Harbaugh was, or not Jim Harbaugh, John Harbaugh, his brother, because we'll talk about Jim in a little bit here. Michigan Wolverines with that big-time loss. He says, I just beg guys not to get into a Twitter world right after the game, especially after a loss. It's never going to be positive. It's never going to be a nice place. You know, that's kind of reflected in Lamar's response because that's not the way he speaks. It's not the way he talks. It's not the words he ever uses. I've never heard him say things like that before. He goes on to say, Lamar Jackson, you've been around him. He's got one of the biggest hearts of anybody I know. You all have to see him, the way he treats people, the way he treats kids, the way he treats the media. He's also one of the biggest competitors I've ever met. So those kind of conversations he takes very seriously. He gets trapped sometimes by someone that's baiting you just a little bit, and you just can't live there. I think that's not a place he wants to be, and that's certainly things that he doesn't want to say. Absolutely.
Remember earlier in the season when that football player was leaving the field? He was with Pittsburgh, and the photographer kind of got in his way, and he just shoved him down. Was he a Raider?
Yes, Devontae pushed him in,
shoved him out of the way. That's how they feel after a game. So, especially a loss. So I'm not surprised by this language at all.
Well, us being in the media, at the end of the day, you have to give these football players at least 15 minutes to cool off. I mean, that's the rule in the National Football League. So for me, players shouldn't be tweeting out. I get it. They want to be a part of social media, and you want that. But sometimes that interaction can definitely have some severe consequences. Now, I wonder with ESPN's take on it, they believe it's a gay slur. It's anti-gay at the end of the day. Do you feel like with all this publicity that the NFL could either fine him or suspend him?
I think they'll fine him.
Okay.
I think they'll fine him.
Okay.
That's not worth a suspension. I'm sorry.
I don't think so either, but you never know these days in the National Football League. With that being said, your Dallas Cowboys could be interested in OBJ and signing him this week. They're actually supposed to visit with him on December 5th, but he was escorted off of an airplane because he wouldn't put his seatbelt on. He was
Yes.
also said to be semi-unconscious and not
Yes.
necessarily the right frame of mind. If you're a Cowboy
Right.
and you're Jerry Jones at this juncture, are you signing OBJ or do I deserve a timeout for that?
Jerry doesn't care. So if you're Jerry Jones, I'll give you a timeout because he doesn't care. Get him on the field, catch some balls. Number one, OBJ was leaving Miami, and it was a Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows what his Saturday night was like? They say he was in and out of consciousness and non-responsive. They said he got onto the plane and wrapped himself in a blanket in his seat. All he had to do was put a seatbelt on, and he would have been fine.
Right.
It's really, and he wouldn't do what they said, so they finally asked him to get off the plane. I think they had to deboard the whole plane.
Yep.
So they have police come on and get him off. Man, if I was on that plane, I'd be so pissed. Like, really? I got to get off because of him?
Well, I mean, is this really surprising? I mean, as talented as he is, it's always the off the field stuff. And I always go back
Right.
to I call it the boat dopes when all those wide New York Giants went down there on a boat right before
Yes.
the playoff game and decided to, I don't know, cut a video for like Jodeci. They all look like they were in a music video instead of concentrating on, that playoff game. And basically one of their worst performances that they've ever had. And eventually, of course, OBJ was out with the New York Giants. So with him, he's supremely talented. But at the end of the day, Chris, you're going to get somebody that definitely has distractions off the field. And I think he's perfect for the Cowboys. He definitely would fit in there. Again, semi-conscious, not conscious, being off a plane, not necessarily a good look. In fact, you're in that territory of Antonio Brown. Not yet, but who knows? It could get.
That's a serious extreme right there with Antonio Brown.
Yes,
we were talking about this last week. That was we thought he had matured beyond these things, and then boom, it's right back to the same old, man. So
yep.
I don't know. We'll see.
All right, you wanted to talk about Jerry Jones. Now there was a photo that resurfaced and went viral from 1957 on Thanksgiving. Give me your thoughts on this because you felt strongly about it.
This is interesting. So Jerry Jones was in a crowd of people that were basically yelling and attacking some kids being brought into Arkansas high school that was being forcefully integrated. And Jerry Jones was part of the crowd there. Now, Stephen A. Smith jumped on and basically said he defended Jerry Jones. After going after Kyrie Irving and other people about racial incidences, he stood up and said, Jerry Jones is my friend, and Jerry Jones isn't like that. Where I believe that if Jerry Jones wasn't his friend, he'd be right in line with everyone else attacking him. So a little bit of timeout on Stephen A. Smith on that one. I don't think that's consistent with his brand and what he's been doing, but I don't know. The thing is, Pete, I'll ask you what you think. He was only 15 years old at the time of the photo. So should he be held accountable? I mean, it's so many years later, but I mean, should he be held accountable for his actions when he was 15?
I think it's tough to do that. I think you came across the same thing when Josh Allen was drafted, right? I mean, he had some gay slurs on Twitter and people were holding that against him. But that's the problem with social media and pictures. Once you put it out there, it's out there. It's out there for everybody and everybody's consumption. So should he be held accountable? I mean, he's 15 years old. I don't know.
Yeah.
Believes he said he was a curious kid. He was around that situation. Who knows? And our world is a lot different than it is now. I feel like we've taken the steps to get better when it comes to social justice and racial divide in this country. I think we've gotten a lot better. There's a lot more opportunities. Of course, there needs to be some more work done at the end of the day, but it was different back then. It doesn't excuse it, but once again, he is 15 years old. So and the timing of it all, it just seems very, very odd. Like somebody was just trying to make a point.
Yeah. Just trolling him.
Yeah.
Speaking of,
yes.
Can we talk about my favorite team to hate, the commies, the Washington commies?
The Commanders.
Their tribute to Sean Taylor.
Yeah.
The Macy's Redskin uniform mannequin.
What did you think of this? Because I thought it was going to be a statue, much like Pat Tillman for
Yeah,
the Arizona Cardinals. They did it right, of course. Him,
right.
dying in battle and being a hero and being a safety for them, former football player. But
Yes.
I thought they would do a little bit more for Sean Taylor. And once again, this organization seems like they just have no clue at the end of the day.
Oh my gosh. They put together a wire mannequin with a Redskins uniform on it, different pieces of equipment that he did use. One thing that they are being criticized for is the statue having soccer cleats on. But his daughter came out and said that she appreciated the Redskins for doing that because his father did play with soccer cleats. But I think that soccer cleats, but I think that they could have done a lot more than what they did. I mean, I think Sean Taylor was a big piece of Redskins history, and I think he deserved better than that.
Yeah, I definitely think you deserve better than that. The soccer cleats meant a lot to his daughter. His daughter talked about it. A lot of people were making fun of it, but if you knew Sean Taylor, that's what he played with. But mismatching uniforms,
Yeah.
just it is what the Washington Commanders organization is all about. They're trying
Yes.
something and they're completely failing miserably as always. I just can't wait till they have a new owner and just a new ownership overall because this team will be so much better off for that. With that being said, what else did you see in the NFL today that deserved maybe a timeout?
Timeout. Well, there's a kind of time in going on in Cleveland
Oh,
as Deshaun Watson is back.
mm-hmm.
He's been practicing with the team for a couple of weeks, and he's set to hit the field pretty soon.
Well, he's actually going to hit the field this week against his former team, the Houston Texans, and his accusers are actually supposed to be they're supposed to be at the game.
Yes.
So my thing is the blowback from this. I get it that the Cleveland Brown fans, they support him in anything he does because they're fans at the end of the day. But the visiting fans, how much of a black eye do you think this is going to be for the National Football League this year?
It's terrible. It's kind of business as usual. It's talent over basically rights and what's good. But it's money. It's money. Money is the root of all evil. And the fact that, gosh, Cleveland put out so much money for Deshaun Watson, just kind of covered their eyes and wrote the check. And now's the time that they're really gonna hear it from fans as far as how just dirty and just how foul this is that he's actually playing football and back on the field.
Yeah, I felt like he should have been suspended for the entire year, but it didn't
At
happen
least,
that way. I
yeah,
mean, just some of the allegations, and again, they're allegations, but when you
yes,
put yourself in those constant situations, it leads me to believe that where there's smoke, there's fire, and maybe you have a
yes.
problem. And I think we will. I'm hoping that you never hear from Watson and these allegations again, but I have a feeling it may come up again. With that being said, let's switch gears here, go to college football. A big time game at the Horseshoe last Saturday as the Michigan Wolverines took care of business, although it didn't look very good early with Ohio State taking a 2017 lead. And then after that, Michigan took full control of the game. They won the game 45-23, being led by J.J. McCarthy, 3 touchdowns, 283 yards. And, a lot of people question this Michigan offense was just rushing the ball. You're going to be without Blake Corum, so you're going to miss him, but didn't happen. In fact, they had Donovan Edwards, 22 carries, 216 yards, and 2 touchdowns. It really doesn't matter who runs the ball.
No,
By all accounts, Michigan is going to run the ball, and they did that on Ohio State last Saturday.
they blew them out. I deserve a timeout. You gave me a
Timeout.
timeout last week.
I
I
told you.
deserve one big time this week because they just blew Ohio State out. I was stunned. I just sat there. I'm thinking about you all week. I'm just like, oh man, oh my gosh, my mouth open, jaw agape, and just Oh, he was right. He was right.
Yeah,
Man,
yeah.
Michigan was ridiculously good.
Now,
Ridiculously good.
not only was the game good, but also it was highly viewed. In fact, according to Bruce Feldman of the Athletic, 17 million of Michigan and Ohio State fans viewed this game as being
Yes.
one of the most watched college football games all time on Fox for that in the last 11 years. So once again, this rivalry really lives up to the billing of it. It was a great game and everybody tuned into it. With that being said, and Ohio State having that one loss, do you feel like we could possibly see a rematch in this college football playoff if all things work out where USC possibly loses? Does the committee thinking about putting on this game once again and seeing Michigan versus Ohio State in the college playoff?
That would be phenomenal if they do set that up. I don't know if I was with the committee and an opportunity to possibly do that, it would be like a no-brainer if it doesn't look too crazy to set that up because I mean it's record breaking the first game. You imagine it in the playoffs going through again, having a rematch. What do you think about South Carolina?
Well, yeah, I mean, 2 straight weeks now. They beat Tennessee and they beat Clemson, and they're developing
Yes.
confidence. And the story there is Spencer Rattler. He's the guy that's basically living up to that potential that a lot of NFL scouts thought of him early on in his career that he could be a
Yes.
possible number one pick. He's showing that, and South Carolina certainly seems like they're starting to learn how to win.
Absolutely. Rattler, 360 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just South Carolina held on and won 31-30 over number 8 Clemson. And that's Clemson's third loss of the season.
It is absolutely. So Clemson's done right now. The college football playoff rankings: Georgia, Michigan, and of course that's going to be announced tonight. But this is the prediction: Georgia, Michigan at number 2, TCU at number 3, being undefeated, and USC with one
USC.
loss if they can get through the Pac-12 championship game versus Utah. They should be in pretty good shape. But if they
Yeah.
don't, Chris, which is always the best scenario because it makes everything chaos and gives us something to talk about when we're
Right.
on these sports talk shows.
Mhm.
Ohio State, Alabama, are those the 2 teams you put in? And out of those 2 teams, who would you put in?
Would it be something if Alabama snuck back into the playoffs? I would be devastated because I'm so happy that they're out. But man, that would be something. And Ohio State is nothing to sniff at. I mean, they are still a really, really strong program. Alabama would be the story for sure. If they slid back in, man, that would be crazy.
Because the committee favors Alabama, I'm going to give you a timeout because I don't think Ohio State deserves it, even though it's one of the
Yeah.
most watched games. They got their doors blown off at home,
Yes.
45-23. And even though it's a one-loss team, I think the committee would favor an Alabama over an Ohio State. But I'm
Yes.
hoping we don't see that because I'm tired of Alabama. I'm tired of these big programs. I want to see a TCU get in, and I
That'd be
definitely
awesome.
see a USC get in. With that
That's
being
right.
locally, we have some breaking news. We talked about this last week. There's a couple reports out there that the University of South Florida Bulls could be zeroing in on a primetime Deion Sanders from Jackson State, of course, going 26-5.
Right.
The report is that this deal could be done by Monday. The contract
Wow.
be signed 5 years, $25 million. It's 90% done. Do you
Wow.
buy Deion Sanders to USF? Why or why not?
I buy it. It's a bigger program than where he was. It's very difficult because it seemed like he was the heart of Jackson State. I would love to see what he's leaving them with, some kind of legacy or program strong enough to withstand him leaving. But it was all his personality, his drive, his wisdom pushing Jackson State
Mm-hmm.
and bringing that to USF. I mean, that would just, man, can you imagine what he would do at USF with more funding, better talent, more resources? I mean, it's scary. That's a move. That's definitely a step move to a bigger school, but still, I'd love to see that.
And this is from JP Peterson of the JP Peterson Show. I'm also told that Deion Sanders demanded the on-campus stadium he completed as a part of the deal and done as an expedited process. The move would also put USF football to the front of the line for the next college football expansion. And of course, USF would host Nick Saban on September 16th at the Aflac Bowl. I absolutely think it makes lots of sense.
Yeah.
Can win the AAC because of a lot of the teams going to the Big 12. Furthermore, you can also expand out. You got a new stadium. It's home for him. He's from Fort Myers. He's able to recruit. You have the NIL agreement. Plenty of money, and the boosters are behind it. It makes lots of sense for Deion to be the next coach. Prime time.
That's amazing. At USF.
Of USF. Amazing.
Ready for the Wire 9-4. Definitely.
Well, here's the thing. You're going to have to wait 5 years for that because
that's right.
But USF gave them all they could handle last Saturday night. But here's the interesting thing here locally. There's one report that says USF has narrowed down the field and has their man already done. There's another one that says, and this is from Tampa Bay Times, does not have their man. There's a radio station here that says that USF is zeroed in on Jamie Chadwell out of Coastal Carolina, which is supposedly the coach they could be getting. And then, of course, JP's report is for Deion Sanders. Now, with that being said, not only Sanders would be the next coach, but from this report, Shedeur Sanders would also follow
transfer,
along with possibly a Travis Hunter and other guys they're transferring from Jackson State. So it's a win-win situation for Sanders and USF if it happens, right?
Absolutely. We do have other big news. Today, the Team USA, the U.S. men's national team, pulled out a 1-0 win over Iran to move into the knockout round of the World Cup. So that was a tense-filled game. We watched it today, this afternoon. Christian Pulisic scored a goal. It was a header into the goal. Pulisic kicked it in, but slammed into the goalie, injured his abdomen. He was on the back of the net, laying down, and it had to be helped off the field, and tried to finish the half, and then didn't return to the pitch. But Team USA was strong on defense, fighting off the Iranian attack, and they came through with the win. So they are moving on. Iran is going home. See you later, fellas. Nice to see you.
Yes.
Let's go USA.
And I think a lot of people, when this World Cup tournament opened up, gave the USA no chance at all to win. They showed me something when they played to a tie or a draw, if you will, with England. They played their hearts out, and today, 38th minute, they score a goal. I'm concerned about Pulisic if he's going to play on Saturday at 10 a.m. versus the Netherlands, because they're going to need him, because he's clearly their best player. And we talked to our soccer insider last week about this. So lots of excitement when it comes to the World Cup. I got to ask you, how much World Cup action have you watched besides just the USA?
Quite a bit, because I've tried to see, the top teams, little Portugal, Brazil, some Ecuador. It's constantly on. There's so many games that they have to go through. Seen some teams like Serbia pull stunning wins over good teams. Germany lost yesterday. So it's drama. You never know what's going to happen. Honestly, you really don't.
You really don't know what's going to happen. And my next question for you is, the longer this goes and USA advances, does soccer become more popular? Because they had a chant, we call it soccer. It's soccer here. But of course, that's kind of disrespectful, because overseas they call it football. And of course, we have American football here. So the longer this goes, can soccer become one of the sports here that's popular, or football is king in this country, in your opinion?
I think the U.S. moving on will definitely help that. It'll get a lot more attention. A lot of people are watching, but not really as many as big ratings as I thought. I know the USA England was like one of the biggest U.S. soccer ratings ever last week, as they managed to hold them off. Actually, the big bets for last week is how many points England would beat the USA by. So that was fun that they held them off. But it depends on how far the USA goes. And then you see the other premier teams around the league or around the world kind of pick up the slack and see who hangs on. It will be huge by the time 2026 comes around and the World Cup is in North America. That's going to be something to see.
It is going to be something to see, and I won't time you out because I agree with you on that. The longer USA does this, it becomes more popular, but it will never be king of football, baseball, or basketball. But
No.
it will be in the conversation, especially on this show of Timeout. Chris Cuff, go ahead and give me your final thoughts here on this show.
Final thoughts. There was a question that was asked of one of the USA soccer players. And the question was basically, they asked him, number one, they corrected him. I think it was they corrected him on the pronunciation of the name of his country. He said it is called Iran, not Iran. And I just wanted to make sure I corrected you on that. Second question was they asked him what it felt like to play for a racist country as the U.S. because they hold back African Americans with Black Lives Matter in their statutes and the way they run the country. And the kid actually answered the question very eloquently, which I think a lot of us could learn that disagree with points the way questions are answered. First of all, he thanked him for correcting him and educating him on the correct way to pronounce his country's name. And second of all, he said that because he's from a mixed family, he learned a lot about mixing in different races. And he said, as long as he saw progress growing in the USA, he's happy to represent the country. So I thought that was fantastic, a wonderful way to answer that question. So we're hearing a lot of stuff going on in the World Cup, and we're actually learning a lot about. It's Tyler Adams, that's what it was. He's the captain of the team. Fantastic job against a hostile press.
Yeah, I mean, hostile press, and at the end of the day, the way to handle it, that's what we do here. So we shall see how far they go in the World Cup. We'll see on Saturday. For Chris Cuff, I'm your host, Peter Blake, for Timeout. Tune in next time, because you never know, we may just time you out.